picture this. You're driving to work.
Okay.
You've got a travel mug full of coffee in the cup holder. Maybe you've got a deep dive playing, hopefully this one.
Hopefully.
Right. You're moving along nicely. And then out of nowhere, wham, you hit a plot hole, and it feels like it just like completely swallowed your front axle.
Yep. Coffee goes absolutely everywhere.
Exactly. Coffee everywhere. Your teeth rattle. And your very first thought is, great, there goes my alignment.
And probably $300.
Yeah, easily $300. So it's this universal sound of a morning completely ruined.
It really is. And, we usually assume it's just bad luck. Or maybe we just shake our fist at the sky and blame the lazy city council for not filling it in.
Right. It feels like a very personal inconvenience.
Yeah.
But today, we're going to argue that the pothole isn't just a nuisance or even just a hole in the asphalt.
It's a clue.
It's a clue. If you know how to read it, that pothole actually tells you everything about your economic future, your social status, and honestly, whether the place you live is dying or thriving.
Which, I know, that sounds traumatic.
It does sound a bit dramatic.
But the research we're looking at today absolutely backs it up. We are doing a deep dive into AP Human Geography concepts today. Specifically, we're looking at infrastructure and spatial equity.
Right, to really understand the built environment. And the mission for this deep dive is pretty specific. We want to stop looking at the roads, the bridges, the power lines, and we want to start looking through them.
Looking through them. I like that.
Because when you look through them, you see the invisible skeleton of society.
That's a really great way to put it. We tend to just ignore infrastructure until it breaks, like the pothole.
Yeah, exactly.
But the reality is these physical structures dictate who gets rich, who stays poor, and how cities actually survive or fail.
So a road is never just a road.
Never. It's a political tool, and it's an economic engine.
Okay, so let's get into the actual machinery of this. Because when I hear infrastructure, I immediately just think of concrete.
Sure, highways, dams.
Right, big steel bridges.
Right.
But reading through the source material, it seems like we really need to update that definition.
We do.
It felt way more like we were talking about a computer operating system than like a construction site.
That analogy actually holds up really well. Think about your laptop. You have the hardware, right? The plastic, the screen, the microchips.
Yeah.
But without the OS, without Windows or Mac OS, that hardware is just a incredibly expensive, glorified paperweight.
It doesn't do anything.
Right. It can't execute any logic. Infrastructure is the operating system for a city.
Okay.
It's the underlying logic that allows human interaction and commerce to even happen.
And just like an OS, it creates the rules of the game.
Yeah.
If the code is buggy, your apps crash. If the infrastructure is bad, society crashes.
Wow.
Precisely. And the sources categorize this OS into 4 distinct sectors. You've got the obvious one first, which is transportation, the circulatory system.
Exactly. Roads, ports, subways, that sort of thing. Then you have utilities.
Which, used to just mean water and electricity.
Uh.
But the notes made a huge point about how this definition has fundamentally shifted.
It has. In the 20th century, utilities meant keeping the lights on and the toilets flushing.
Right.
But in the 21st century, high-speed internet is a utility. If you don't have fiber optic cables in the ground today, you are just as cut off as a house without water was 100 years ago.
I really like the third category, too.
Yeah.
Because I don't usually group these things with the word infrastructure.
Public services.
Yeah. Schools, hospitals, police, and fire stations.
We call that social infrastructure. It's the literal machinery that keeps the population safe and educated.
Makes sense.
And finally, you have the fourth sector, which is rapidly becoming probably the most critical: sustainable systems.
Green infrastructure.
Right. We're talking about stormwater management, green energy grids, the stuff that actively prevents the city from literally drowning or burning up.
So it's the fiber optic cable, the storm drain, the bus stop, and the ER.
All of it.
It's the so what of it all that really hit me, though. It's not just about convenience. I mean, if my internet is slow, I'm annoyed.
Sure.
But if the water system fails, that's literal life or death.
It is. And we have a devastating case study for that in the sources. Flint, Michigan.
I think pretty much everyone listening knows the headline there,
Yeah.
Lead in the water.
Right.
But the source material really dug into the actual mechanism of why that happens. It wasn't just, oops, dirty water. It was a complete failure of the operating system.
It was a massive failure of maintenance and decision-making. So in 2014, to save money, the city switched its water source to the Flint River.
Okay.
But they failed to treat that water with corrosion inhibitors.
Right, and that's the technical detail that really matters here. The water from the river was more corrosive than their previous source.
Yes.
So it literally ate away the inside of the old lead pipes.
Exactly. The infrastructure, the pipes themselves, had been there for decades. They were what we'd call dormant risks.
Just waiting there.
Yes. And the decision to change the water chemistry activated that risk. It stripped the protective coating inside the pipes, leaching neurotoxins directly into the water supply.
God.
It resulted in a massive public health crisis and severe long-term developmental issues for kids in the area.
It effectively poisoned a generation.
It did.
And it proves the point so clearly. Infrastructure decisions aren't abstract. They happen in a meeting room, someone's looking at a spreadsheet to cut costs, but the result is a kid in a hospital bed.
And that reality leads us directly into the economics. Because if bad infrastructure can literally kill you, good infrastructure is what allows you to make a living in the first place.
The sources actually called it a prerequisite for economic flourishing.
Which makes total sense when you think about it. You can't build a Silicon Valley in a place where the power goes out every 4 hours.
You just can't. Let's look at this through the eyes of a massive company. Say you're Amazon or a big auto manufacturer. You need to build a new fulfillment center. You have a giant map of the U.S. on the wall. How do you actually choose where to put the pin?
Well, what would you look for?
I assume I'm looking for tax breaks. Or really cheap land.
Those definitely matter, but the ultimate deal breaker is always logistics.
Moving things.
Right. You need to move millions of packages efficiently. This is exactly where Atlanta comes into the conversation.
The sources highlighted Atlanta as a sort of logistics supernova.
It really is. It's absolutely not an accident that Atlanta is this massive economic hub. It has Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport, which is notoriously the busiest in the world.
Right.
But critically, that airport sits right next to the intersection of major interstate highways and a massive, massive rail hub.
It's highly intermodal.
Exactly.
You can fly a specialized part in from China, immediately put it on a train, and then transfer it onto a truck, all within a few square miles.
That convergence reduces friction. And friction is money. Because Atlanta proactively invested in that network, that operating system, Amazon and countless others set up shop there.
Which creates thousands of jobs.
Thousands.
But here's the trap. This is where the notes started getting into feedback loops. Because it seems like infrastructure creates this inevitable self-fulfilling prophecy.
We call it the virtuous cycle. Imagine a really wealthy suburb. They have a high tax base simply because the property values there are high.
So they have plenty of cash on hand to pave the roads, upgrade the local schools, and roll out high-speed 5G internet.
Right. Which then attracts high-income residents and high-tech businesses.
Who then pay even more taxes.
Exactly, which funds even better infrastructure. The wheel just spins upward.
But then you have the inverse of that, the vicious cycle.
Sadly, yes.
Yeah.
Take a region where the factories closed down 30 years ago. The tax base immediately crumbles.
Right.
The roads get potholes. The water system degrades. The schools struggle.
So no new business is going to want to move there. I mean, why would you build a brand new factory if the delivery trucks are going to break an axle just getting to your loading dock?
You wouldn't. Capital flees. The tax base shrinks even further. And the local government literally cannot afford to fix the core problems.
They are trapped in a doom loop.
Yes.
That is genuinely terrifying. It's like being stuck in quicksand. You can't climb out because you don't have a ladder, but you can't buy a ladder because you're stuck in quicksand.
That's a grim way to put it, but it's accurate. And this is exactly where we have to pivot to the politics of it all.
Because we like to pretend that concrete is neutral.
We do.
A road is just engineering,
Yeah.
right? It's just math and asphalt.
But the source material is very, very blunt about this. Infrastructure is not neutral. Not even a little bit. It is the physical, tangible manifestation of political power.
There was a specific line in the notes that really stuck with me. Where we fix the road tells you who matters.
It's the concept of spatial inequality. And you don't need a PhD in geography to see it. You literally just need to get in your car.
I've actually done this experiment in my own city. You drive 10 minutes in one direction, and suddenly the actual hum of your tires changes.
Yes.
It goes from that smooth, quiet whoosh to a harsh rattle. And you look up, and the streetlights aren't those bright LEDs anymore. They're those dim, flickering orange sodium lights.
That sensory shift you're describing is spatial equity in action.
Wow.
The source material uses Philadelphia as a prime example of this, but it's true in Chicago, LA, New York. You have wealthy neighborhoods with perfectly paved streets, lush tree canopies, and reliable, totally invisible utilities.
And then, often just a few blocks away, you have severely neglected pavement and substandard services.
It's a tale of two cities functioning within the exact same border.
But let's dig into how this actually happens, because it's not just local mayors sitting in a room deciding who they like better today.
Mhm.
There's a deep historical context here.
Especially in America.
Right, with the suburbs.
This is crucial. We have to talk about the Federal Aid Highway Act of 1956. This was the massive legislation that created the interstate highway system.
Eisenhower's big pet project.
Right. But look closely at the funding structure of that act. The federal government offered to pay 90% of the cost for building highways.
90%.
For every single dollar a state spent, the feds chipped in $9.
Okay, but did they offer that same incredible deal for subways or commuter trains?
No,
Hmm.
they didn't offer a dime for that. So if you are a state urban planner in 1956 and you have limited municipal funds, what are you going to build?
You build the thing that's basically 90% off. You build roads.
Exactly.
So the financial incentive from the top literally paved the way for the car-centric suburbs. We basically paid to move people out of the dense cities.
We did. And by doing so, we gutted public transit infrastructure. If you owned a car, the world became your oyster overnight. You could live out in the quiet, spacious suburbs and just drive to work on this brand new subsidized highway.
But if you were poor, if you had to rely on a bus,
You were stranded. The jobs rapidly moved to these suburban office parks and factories that the urban bus lines didn't reach.
so design actually reinforces segregation. We didn't even need to build physical walls. We just built ring roads.
That's right. A bus line isn't just about movement, it's about access to opportunity. If the bus schedule doesn't align with the shift work at the new factory, or if the route just simply doesn't go to the good hospital, you are effectively cutting that entire population off from the economy.
It's incredible how much raw power a simple bus schedule has. It determines who actually gets to participate in society.
It really does.
Now, I want to zoom way out for a second. We've been talking mostly about local neighborhoods and cities, but this exact same logic applies to the entire planet, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. The same operating system dynamic plays out between nations. In geography, we use the terms core, periphery, and semi-periphery to describe this.
So the core countries are the ones who already bought the ladder to get out of the quicksand.
Yes, the US, Western Europe, Japan, they have the accumulated historical wealth, the capital, to maintain massive, redundant infrastructure systems.
Right.
So when a multinational corporation decides where to build a new global headquarters, they choose the core because the baseline risk is low. They know the lights will stay on. They know the internet won't drop.
And the periphery. These are the developing nations that are desperately trying to catch up.
And they are fighting that vicious cycle we talked about, but on a massive national scale. They lack the tax revenue to build out a modern power grid, but because they lack the reliable grid, they can't attract the global factories needed to generate that tax revenue.
But wait, why can't they just borrow the money to build a grid first?
Oh, they try. But because their existing infrastructure is weak, they are classified by global markets as high risk. So international banks charge them absolutely astronomical interest rates.
So it's expensive to be poor.
Very.
The source material actually used a pretty memorable phrase here to describe the magnitude of the debt and the difficulty these countries face.
Yes, I believe the researchers literally used the term metric buttload of challenges.
Which is definitely not your standard academic terminology.
No, it's not. But I think it perfectly captures the genuine frustration of the situation. Even the experts look at the math sometimes and just throw up their hands.
Yeah.
It emphasizes the sheer weight of the obstacle. It's not just about working harder, it's about overcoming a structural deficit that has compounded over an entire century.
It really puts that whole pull yourself up by your bootstraps argument to bed. It's pretty hard to pull on your bootstraps when you literally don't have paved roads to walk on.
Or safe water to drink. And this brings us right back to the human cost. We've talked a lot about money and politics and geography, but this hits real people in their daily lives.
The notes mentioned a very specific example about safety in India.
Yes, this is a very powerful illustration of how infrastructure directly impacts gender equity. In many Indian cities, the public transit systems have historically lacked very basic safety measures.
Like what?
Good lighting, security personnel, reliable scheduling.
So it makes the transit actively dangerous, specifically for women.
Right. And the result isn't just that women are uncomfortable on the bus, it's that they stop traveling altogether.
Wow.
They turn down better paying jobs that are further from home because the commute is just too risky. They drop out of the formal workforce.
So the GDP of the entire country takes a noticeable hit simply because the bus stop isn't safe.
Exactly. Fear acts as a literal brake on the economy.
That's wild.
No.
And then shifting gears a bit, you have the environmental limits. We mentioned sustainable systems earlier.
Yeah.
And the sources made it clear this is going to be the main event for the next 20 years.
Without a doubt. We're seeing this right now with the escalating heat waves. Cities are turning into concrete ovens.
It's the urban heat island effect.
Yes, concrete and asphalt absorb solar heat all day long and then radiate it back out all night. If you look at a thermal map of any major city during a heat wave, the poorer neighborhoods are consistently 10 to 15 degrees hotter than the wealthy ones.
Just because the wealthy neighborhoods have more mature trees?
Exactly. Trees are infrastructure. They aren't just pretty to look at. They are highly efficient natural air conditioners.
That's a great way to look at it.
But it's also about hard environmental limits. Think about major cities in very arid regions. Phoenix, Las Vegas, Cairo.
Okay.
Water infrastructure in those places acts as a hard, non-negotiable ceiling. You cannot code your way out of a severe drought. If the pipes can't physically bring the water, the city stops growing. Period.
It feels like we're reaching a tipping point where we can't just engineer our way around nature anymore. We actually have to start engineering with it.
That's the major shift happening right now. Green infrastructure. Permeable pavement that absorbs rain, restored wetlands, rooftop gardens. This stuff isn't just architectural decoration anymore. It's a literal survival mechanism for these cities.
So let's try to synthesize all this. We've gone from a single pothole spilling my coffee to global debt crises to urban heat islands.
We've covered a lot of ground.
We have. But it seems like the big takeaway here is that infrastructure is the invisible hand guiding, well, basically everything.
That is the perfect synthesis. Infrastructure is the invisible hand guiding our economic trajectory, our social equity, and our environmental health.
Yeah.
We walk on it, we drive on it, and we flush things down it every single day without a second thought. But those exact systems are actively shaping the parameters of our lives every single second.
It really changes how you look at a noisy construction site. Next time I'm stuck in traffic, it's not just noise and orange cones. It's someone actively programming the operating system of my city.
And here is the real aha moment I want to leave listeners with today. A city might look incredibly developed from a distance. If you look at the skyline, the macro level, it usually looks prosperous.
Shiny skyscrapers, massive highways.
Right, but the neighborhood scale reveals the true story. You always have to zoom in to see the inequality.
Because the massive highway might look like a great achievement from a helicopter, but down on the ground, it might literally be the concrete wall that cut a vibrant community in half.
Precisely. The difference between the skyline and the sidewalk is where the truth actually lives.
That is a incredibly powerful image. So for everyone listening right now, next time you're stuck in traffic, staring at a massive crane, what should they be asking themselves?
Ask yourself this. Who is this for? When you see a new protected bike lane or a massive new highway ramp or even just a pothole that's finally been fixed, ask who benefits from that specific placement.
Right.
And equally important, who is being deliberately bypassed? Is the infrastructure you use every day connecting you to opportunity, or is it walling you off?
And maybe, just maybe, have a little more patience with the next pothole you hit, because it's trying to tell you something important. You've been listening to A Deep Dive. We'll see you next time.